What do you need in order to win a Super Bowl? A quarterback playing at a high level, a reliable run game, a dominant pass rush, a coach that has all his players bought in. There's more, of course, but these are the main ingredients. Believe it or not, the Raiders had this not too long ago. With the recent news of Derek Carr's retirement, I feel like this is the appropriate time to rehash the season that almost brought Oakland one last Super Bowl. Let's go back 10 years. It was a new era in Oakland with Jack Del Rio taking over at head coach for Dennis Allen, and quarterback Derek Carr entering his second season. For the Raiders, it was really only up from there, having gone 3-13 during the 2014 season with the 31st ranked offense and the 32nd ranked defense. In 2015, while they may have fallen just short of the playoffs, they were still playing meaningful games in December, which was a night and day difference from where they were a year prior. 2015 ended with a 7-9 record, but plenty of excitement on the horizon. Most importantly, the second pro season for second-round quarterback Derek Carr was an encouraging one, where he threw for 32 touchdowns and had the second most passing yards in a season in Raiders franchise history. There was even more optimism with their 4th overall pick Amari Cooper, who just eclipsed 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns as a 21-year-old rookie. The signing of Michael Crabtree looked like a big hit as well, as Cooper and Crabtree became the third duo in team history to have 1,000 yards in the same season. And of course, there was the breakout of second-year edge rusher Khalil Mack, who put up 15 sacks and 57 solo tackles and made first-team All-Pro. With these three young guys, the Raiders had a foundation to build on. The retirements of vocal leaders like Charles Woodson and Justin Tuck would not make it any easier, but these emerging stars had to take over. The 2016 offseason was a crucial one. With Carr, Cooper, and Mack still on their rookie deals, the Raiders had a small window where they could build a championship contender. Raiders general manager Reggie McKenzie got busy that offseason, handing out a few big contracts in free agency. Left guard Kelechi Osemele was given a 5-year, $60 million deal coming over from Baltimore at the age of 27. Linebacker Bruce Irvin left the Legion of Boom to join Oakland on a 4-year, $37 million deal, where he also got to reunite with his former linebacker coach from Seattle. Cornerback Sean Smith came over from the division rival Chiefs on a 4-year, $40 million deal to play opposite of the promising David Amerson. And then there was veteran safety Reggie Nelson, who signed on for 2 years, having come off his first Pro Bowl season at the age of 32. They were also able to retain a big piece of their team, with left tackle Donald Penn extending for 2 more seasons. To be honest, there was a lot of hype around the Raiders for the first time since, maybe then. This was an organization that had not made the playoffs for 13 seasons. Remember, we're entering 2016, and the last time this organization appeared in a playoff game was the Super Bowl in 2002. I guess technically 2003. But you get the point, it's been a long time. Despite that though, some experts and the media had this team making the playoffs. There was belief in head coach Jack Del Rio, belief in Carr with Cooper and Crabtree, belief in their offensive line, and belief in their revamped defense. Most sportsbooks had them around 7.5 or 8.5 wins, but it was up to the team to change the narrative instead of being called the quote-unquote same old Raiders. Maybe you're a believer in this, maybe you're not, but I actually think there's some legitimacy to thinking a huge week 1 win, especially on the road, could set the tone for an entire season. I saw this happen to my Giants in 2022. In 2016's week 1, Oakland had a tough task, visiting Drew Brees and the Saints in New Orleans. Brandon Cooks and the Saints offense had the upper hand early, taking a 14-point lead midway through the 3rd quarter. Oakland did storm back though with Jalen Richard's 75-yard touchdown and a 2-point conversion to Cooper to tie things up. Late in the 4th, the Raiders found themselves down 7, needing a touchdown drive to send the game to overtime. Carr led a gutsy 75-yard touchdown drive with the help of some awful defensive penalties, and Jack Del Rio was faced with a decision. With 47 seconds remaining and the score 33-34, Oakland could have either done the conventional thing and played for overtime, or be risky and play for the win.
We go for the win, we go for the tie. Hell guys, we're convicts, we always go for it all.
They decided to go for 2. And it worked. Michael Crabtree ripped down a fade route, Will Lutz missed a 61-yard field goal, and the Raiders got themselves a momentous win to start 1-0. The team started off hot, entering their bye week at 7-2, and being battle-tested in many different ways. Whether it was a gritty defensive battle like their Week 3 win in Tennessee, a back-and-forth shootout like Week 5 versus San Diego, or a complete demolition like Week 7 at Jacksonville, they were winning in every which way. Their 7 wins to that point were tied for the most in the NFL, and they were in first place in the AFC West. But just when you thought the first half of their season was a fluke, they came out of their bye and did not miss a beat. There was that weird Mexico City game with the laser pointer where they beat the 6-3 Texans. The following week was a thriller against the reigning NFC champion Panthers, where Derek Carr briefly left the game with a nasty looking pinky injury, but came back to lead a game-winning drive. The win streak went to 6 games with a second half comeback win versus Buffalo, where the Raiders offense scored 29 unanswered points in the final 21 minutes. Week 14 would be a massive game for Oakland, coming in at 10-2 to face the division rival Chiefs, who were 9-3. Despite 3 Chiefs turnovers, the Raiders passing game could get nothing going, and they dropped this crucial Thursday night matchup 21-13. With Kansas City now holding the tiebreaker, it was going to be tough for Oakland to claim the AFC West title. But the good news was, at minimum, the Raiders were in the driver's seat for the first wildcard spot in the AFC playoffs. They'd bounced back with a low-scoring win over San Diego, putting them at a very respectable 11-3 on the year. And to make it even better, Kansas City lost their next matchup as heavy favorites. So the Raiders, despite the loss to them the previous Thursday, still had a chance of winning the division if they won out their 2 remaining games. This takes us to Christmas Eve 2016. The Raiders hosted the 7-7 Indianapolis Colts, who were desperate for a win to keep their playoff chances alive. By the middle of the third quarter, this game was all but over. Oakland had a commanding 33-7 lead. Everything was perfect if you were an Oakland Raiders fan at this very moment. It was the holidays, your team was beating the living crap out of a team that was still competing to win, you knew that you were just 1 win away from your first division title in 14 years, and the only thing standing in your way was Trevor Siemian and the Broncos. You finally had a franchise quarterback who was only 25 years old and squarely in the MVP race. Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack were not even 25 yet and looked like absolute studs. All 4 of your free agent signings that previous offseason were looking like home runs to that point, and their rookie running back was having a breakout game. It was all perfect, and then this happened.
Blue Whitey! What's up? It's broke! It's broke! It's broke! It's broke! It's broke!
Broken fibula, season over. Talk about a crushing blow for a franchise that looked to be on the doorstep for Super Bowl contention. The recovery time for Carr was 6 to 8 weeks, with the short end of that still giving him a chance to return for the Super Bowl had the Raiders made it that far, but unfortunately, this was real life and not a Disney movie. Without Carr, the Raiders had no shot at competing. Despite missing the final 5 quarters of that season, Carr still received 12% of the MVP votes for the 2016 season. He had a tremendous 28 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions and was clutch all year, finishing with 7 game-winning drives, only trailing Matthew Stafford in that category. However, even with Carr sidelined, there was still a season left to be played. The options at quarterback behind him were Penn State legend Matt McGloin or 4th-round rookie out of Michigan State Connor Cook. McGloin, being the more experienced and coming off of a solid preseason that year, was given the first chance at the quarterback 1 job. The Raiders entered the final week of the season needing either a win of their own or a Chiefs loss to win the AFC West. They got neither. And to make a depressing situation even more depressing, Matt McGloin was knocked out of that game with a shoulder injury. This meant that the Chiefs and Raiders finished at 12-4, but with Kansas City going 2-0 against them in the regular season, it was Kansas City who won the division and got the wild card bye, not Oakland. With Matt McGloin knocked out due to his sore shoulder, the Raiders were all but forced to turn to Connor Cook. Cook only had 21 passes on his NFL resume to that point, and they all came the prior week in relief of McGloin's injury. Connor Cook hadn't even made a start yet in the NFL, and in 2016's wildcard weekend, Cook became the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era to make his first career start in a playoff game. Pretty cool stat, but imagine that. In a 2-week span, Raiders fans went from, wow, we have a chance at winning a Super Bowl if things break our way, to a guy making his first career start in their first first playoff game in about 14 years. But this was now the playoffs. There was no time to settle in. Cook had to deliver or else their season was over. Luckily for Oakland, they drew one of the easier playoff teams, which was the Brock Osweiler-led Texans. But not even that was enough to help overcome the loss of Carr. The Raiders were able to hang around for about a half of the game, but after a DeAndre Hopkins touchdown to make it 20-7, this 13-point lead almost seemed insurmountable. To the surprise of nobody, Cook looked overmatched in his first NFL start. It was a loud environment, and after his brutal interception in the first quarter to Jadeveon Clowney, you knew it was going to be a long day. Cook was sacked 3 times and threw 3 interceptions in what would be his one and only start in the NFL, which I feel like he might be able to go to the grave saying he's the only guy to ever make one career start in the NFL and have that be in a playoff game. So what if we lived in a world where Derek Carr did not get his leg trapped under Trent Cole in week 16? Are the Raiders even playing on Wildcard weekend? There's a chance they have a bye and have the 2nd seed in the AFC, but even if they had lost the division with Carr, the Raiders did beat the Texans 2 months prior in Mexico City while Carr was still healthy. Not to say that the same outcome would have happened again, but it's needless to say that their chances were substantially higher with Derek Carr. Had the Raiders won the division, they would have matched up in the divisional round with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In reality, it was Pittsburgh who won a low-scoring game over Kansas City, and to be honest, this may have been the game where Andy Reid and the Chiefs realized they needed more firepower at the quarterback position, and of course the rest was history. Now, had the Raiders beat Pittsburgh in what would have been their first hosted playoff game since 2003, they would have had to beat Tom Brady in New England for the AFC Championship, and I really do think this would have been a classic AFC Championship game. Instead, we had to watch the Steelers get dismantled in a game that probably nobody remembers. Maybe Mike Tomlin does, considering he has not been to an AFC title game since. I'm just kidding. Well, not actually. That is a real stat. While New England would have rightfully been favored for this game, you could definitely make the argument for Oakland winning. On offense, they had the dominant offensive line, they took care of the football, they had the 6th best rushing attack in football that year, they had 2 stud wide receivers and Derek Carr, who was not only elite that year, but deadly in the clutch. On defense, they would not have had to deal with Rob Gronkowski, who was injured, so that would have helped out immensely. Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin were dominant that season and could have rattled Tom Brady, but overall, it would have been tough for them to stop LeGarrette Blount and the running game, and you know Brady got rid of the ball quicker than anybody to mitigate a good pass rush. Now, even if this 2016 Oakland team had made it past the Patriots, it would have been just as difficult to beat the Falcons and MVP Matt Ryan. That team had one of the better offenses we'll ever see, as we saw for the first 2.5 quarters, and I have a feeling that Sean Smith and David Amerson would have had a tough time handling those receivers. To be honest, we'll never know the answer, but I wish we had been able to just see this Raiders team healthy for that one playoff run. In my 20 or so years of being a football fan, I've never really seen the Raiders be a good team, and with that being one of their final seasons in Oakland, it was something I wish those fans got to witness, and possibly could have gotten their redemption in New England after that ridiculous tuck rule game about 15 years prior. As for 2017, the Raiders were nowhere close to replicating the magic they had in 2016. When Derek Carr came back from his broken leg, he looked okay, but not nearly as effective as he was the previous 2 seasons. Not only that, but Derek Carr did suffer a back fracture in week 4, and while the initial diagnosis suggested a 2 to 6 week absence, he only missed 1 game. Offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave was surprisingly let go by Oakland after having a top 10 offense in 2016, a decision that not many agreed with. Even something as simple as the turnover battle really hampered the 2017 Raiders. They were an impressive plus 12 in the turnover battle in 2016, but that plus 12 plummeted to minus 14 in 2017. They were just nowhere close to the same team. There were other smaller personnel changes too, but the key factor was Derek Carr was not the same guy. Whether that was due to injury, his players dropping passes, the offensive coordinator change, or changing his own style of play post-injury, some suggested he was spooked in the pocket as compared to the way he played before the leg injury. Over the next 6 years of Carr's Raiders career, there were stretches of elite quarterback play, but other stretches where it was frustrating and left you wanting more. We all know about the dysfunction around him, so we can't pin it all on Carr, but it makes you wonder if that 2016 injury may have altered his career. Videos like this will suggest it did alter his career. Fans of the Raiders may say the same thing. Joey Bosa even said it in 2021. It may be viewed as an injury that takes a few months to heal, and while that may be true, true, we rarely talk about the psychological impact it can have on a player. It's a different situation because this one was not due to injury, but as a Giants fan, I saw this happen to Eli Manning the final 3 years of his career. A guy who used to hang in the pocket no matter who was coming after him, all of a sudden started going down earlier and not trusting his line like he used to. Derek Carr still displayed plenty of toughness over the next 8 years of his career, all the way up until his final play in the NFL, ironically. The guy will go down as a warrior and overall a really good quarterback. But as for the 2016 Raiders, they will go down as one of the many what-ifs in pro sports. That'll do it for the video. Of course, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time.